you guys have had, I guess, a few days off now. Just kind of what's been the game plan the last few days, getting ready for this first round game?
Well, we didn't get back till late Saturday because of weather issues. We got back Saturday night, and we had Saturday off, Sunday off. We practiced yesterday after finding out that we're playing Virginia Sunday when the selections were announced for the NIT. And so we'll practice today and then leave here about 5 o'clock, headed to Charlottesville.
You obviously know Coach Bennett really well. Just talk about your history with him a little bit, and then, of course, the team that he's got this year seems to be a pretty strong one.
My first year in the Pac-10, which then became the Pac-12, Dick Bennett, Tony's father, became the head coach the same year at Washington State. And what a great coach Dick Bennett is and was. It was an honor to compete against him. And I would say both when you play Dick Bennett and then Tony Bennett at Washington State, it's like getting a root canal. It's not fun. The way they defend, the way they execute offensively. And we had some great games. UCLA had never lost in Pauley Pavilion to Washington State till Dick Bennett beat us there, and then Tony also beat us there. So I'm the infamous coach that allowed 2 Washington State losses on our home floor at UCLA. We had good success in Pullman, but we had great games. I mean, one time we beat Washington State's best year when Tony's team. They were number 5 in the country. We were number 4. It's a great game. I just have incredible respect for Tony and, the job he's done at Virginia, and was so excited for them a few years back when they won the national championship. I was thrilled for him. He's a very good Christian man, an incredible basketball coach, comes from a great family. His sister was an outstanding coach, was a great player for his dad at Green Bay, played in New Zealand after playing in the NBA. I mean, I know a lot about Tony and have great respect and admiration for him. And Virginia, and I know they're very, very fortunate to have him as their coach.
Coach, obviously, I'm sure your team and you are disappointed not getting into the NCAA tournament, and sometimes, that can carry over to the NIT, and we've seen teams not really wanting to be there. But how was the mood of your team once they got the news that they will be in the NIT?
We felt like we were going to be in the NIT just based on the net and, the Ken Palm rankings of our team after our loss to Tennessee down in Tampa. And I discussed it right after the game with both Tolu and Iverson as we were walking to do the post-game, press conference after that game. And they were both excited to keep playing. And, our guys, they're kids. Tolu only got to play in about, 60% of the games this year because of his injuries. So I know he's really excited to keep playing. And obviously we got to, I think we have the toughest draw in the NIT because we're supposed to be hosting as a 3 seed. Not only are we having to go on the road, we got to play the hardest team you could possibly play to be on the road against.
One more question, Coach. When you talk about Virginia's defense, what are things that your team has to do to be successful against that type of defense?
Shoot it, because they're so packed in and they're so reactive towards any drives. They're in constant help that you're really required that you've got to make some jump shots to beat a Bennett team. They're going to get a hand up and contest level of release. But they do a great job. They double the post. They try to keep the ball out of the post as much as possible. They have, oftentimes 3 guys back on defense. They're never giving up anything in transition. So they're making it a half-court game. Their tempo is 357 out of 357. It's always right there every year. So it's a very patient, controlled game where they're going to have the ball a lot in their hands. They don't turn it over. They never turn it over. They're always one of the top teams in the country in assist to turnover ratio, and then also just lowest turnovers So, they got a lot of things that go their way, and you've got to shoot the ball against them, though. Like, I was watching one of their games last night against Duke. They beat Duke on the road at Duke, and then Duke made some huge threes late in the game in one of the last home games of the year, completion of the season, to win. One of their freshmen for Duke hit a couple back-to-back threes that were just huge shots. So you got to be able to shoot the ball.
Steph, go ahead and hop in there for a couple.
Hey, Ben, I was just kind of curious, with you, how do you kind of maybe ignore, whether it be on the message boards, on social media, stuff that swirls about you, and how much you, relay that to, your players, and I'm sure, they're on social media as well and seeing various things.
We're just focused on the game. I'm not sitting there talking to our players about that at all. I mean, it's, we're focused on being the very best team we can be and compete against a great program and a great team, a team that just won the national championship in the last few years and has been the dominant team in the ACC over the last 8 to 10 years. So it's a real thrill from my standpoint to be playing in this game.
Yeah, what conversation maybe you have with Iverson? I know you had 1 point in that second half against Tennessee, and teams have been face guarding him in the second half, throughout the season. To kind of keep any frustrations, or I'm sure he'd love to be scoring more, get the ball a bit more. What kind of conversations do you have with him?
Not anything specific to that, or that he scored 1 point in the second half, just to keep his head up. I mean, we didn't play well in that second half. I thought the first half we played very well against Tennessee, and I thought that the 3 threes, or actually 4 threes, that Josiah James hit against us, really broke the game open. That was poor defense. I thought we actually showed some signs of fatigue in that second half, the way we came out and played from the previous game against South Carolina, which can happen when, you're exerting yourself back-to-back nights and you're playing. I think Tennessee was the best team in our league this year when you look at it, the way they completed the season. And if I were to bet on any one team that has the best chance to get to the Final Four, and I think we could have multiple actually out of the league this year, but I have a strong feeling that Tennessee is going to be an incredibly hard out in the NCAA tournament this year. They're playing. This is the best team he's had during my tenure here at Mississippi State at Tennessee. They have great chemistry, great depth. They're really bought into their roles. They're playing the very best basketball at this time of year, so. When you looked at what Tennessee did after they played us in the tournament, I think, it made me feel a little better that, hey, God, I think Kentucky had 22 points at halftime the next day, and they had 95% of the people in the building. They had a home game.
We'll go up to Charlottesville and Greg. Greg, hop in there for a couple.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Ben, I just got one for you. Jaden Gardner has emerged as their top scorer this year. What challenges does he present for your defense?
Well, he's a really good player. Came from East Carolina and very strong, 6'6", 246 pounds. He's a bull, very good shooter, 17, 18 fitting in, doesn't really shoot a lot of threes, gets to the foul line a lot, is a good foul shooter. He's just very strong, physical. He can face up and jab step you off and make the jump shot all day long. He can attack you and score at the basket. He's really strong and physical, so he's a real presence, and we're going to have to be, try to hold our own physically with him at 246 pounds. He's a big boy.
Go back to Theo. Theo, go ahead.
Yeah, before the season this year, you talked about the importance of the NIT run last year as far as getting experience for these players. Did you see that pay off this year, and if so, how?
Well, I thought that the way we played last year in the NIT was really, really good for us, and especially the guys that returned, that Cam Matthews benefited from it. He played well in the NIT late, and, I thought it was good for Iverson a year ago. Tolu actually had COVID, so I think he got to play in one game, as I remember, and that was the first one before he was held out. Never really had COVID, just was out for COVID protocols because of a relation he had with someone who had it. Yeah, I think it always helps kids to play in postseason. And I know that in our third year when we went to New York, it helped the team for the following year in terms of the NCAA run. And I thought that would do the same for us this year. And obviously we had some, things that happened in the meantime that I wasn't counting on. I thought that we'd have DJ back one more year, Stewart, and I didn't anticipate him leaving early to not get drafted and go to the G League and play all year. But that being said, I think it was a good experience for us last year, and we're proud to be in it.
John Sokoloff.
Good, John.
Come on, Ben. How you doing?
Good.
So I'm not sure if we're going to get you after that Virginia game, or I'm sure they will, but I just know I won't be there. But I know you kind of answered it with Steph's question earlier with all the speculation, whatever. But based on the last couple of years, this season, whatever, do you think you deserve to be back to be the head coach of the Bulldogs next year?
Yeah, I really wanted to be back next year. I thought that with our team returning, and I think, and a lot again depends on being healthy. And I say at the beginning of every year, John, that the number one key to each and every team in the country as you go into the season is to stay healthy. And especially, you're talking about your starters. And that was a tough break for us this year with Tolu. And I'm really happy that he's gone now here late in the year and played a bunch of games in a row. And you could see his level of play going up. And I think Iverson will test the waters, but I think there's a good chance he'll be back as well. So, if that does happen, I would be disappointed to not have a chance to coach his team that returned. And we have this is the best recruiting class we've had, John, in the last 3 years, getting back to normal, being out on the road and seeing kids play. But, Riley Krugel and you'll look at this and hopefully you'll follow it, is going to be a really good player. And then I really was excited about Jaquan Walton and excited about Keami Hamilton, both kids that we, really think highly of. And then we have a verbal commitment whose name I can't mention because he's unsigned yet, but is a really good player. So that being said, we'll just worry about that later. Right now, my biggest concern is just getting ready for this game that we're going to play tomorrow night in Charlottesville.
Go back to the Virginia group, and Kip, do you have anything?
All right. Yeah, thanks, Matt. Ben, I was just wondering, the presence of two former ACC guys on your team, Garrison Brooks and Shaq Moore, what was their reaction when they saw the draw? Did they say anything to their teammates about, hey, it's Virginia?
I think Garrison put out on their team thread, it's going to be a football game, meaning it's going to be very physical. He played against them for 4 years and has great respect for Virginia and, just how physical they are, how tough they are, how they fight you for everything. And then, Shaq actually had a good game against Virginia last year in his freshman year at NC State. But, they both know Virginia is a standard bearer, the last 7-8 years, as I said earlier, in the ACC. I mean, you tell me, how many ACC championships have they had in the last 8 years?
I think 2 tournaments and I want to say 3 regular seasons.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it does. Thanks, Ben.
You bet. And I think a couple number 1 seeds overall in the NCAA tournament.
Paul Jones, wrap us up.
Coach, just to kind of get an update on Rocket, I hadn't asked you in a couple of weeks about him. Any chance he plays in NIT?
He won't even be traveling with us.